Michael Huber.
Ben Moore.
You were the biggest fan of MOBAs in the office. You can't stop talking about them.
That is a blatant lie.
You love them.
That is a blatant lie.
You go to conventions, League of Legends cosplay every time. Different character. Different champion.
It's a 100% lie. I played Dota 1, 1,000 hours. Dota 2, like 50 hours, that's it. That's my MOBA expertise.
Okay.
Heroes of the Storm, 30 minutes.
Well, Michael Huber, you do like StarCraft. That is not a blatant lie.
That is truth.
You love it.
Fanatic.
I wouldn't be surprised if you had a Terran tattoo somewhere on your body that we just haven't seen. So I have a game for you.
Mm-hmm.
What if they mixed something you don't really like with something you do really like? Would you be into that?
It would be something I kind of like.
Right. To the point where it just sort of fades into the background and you forget about it, maybe?
Yeah, explain.
Explain. So
Explain this
Supernova is a new MOBA from Bandai Namco. I went to a Bandai Namco. Is it Namco Bandai or Bandai Namco?
I'm getting confused about it.
I'm getting very confused.
Yeah.
The rebranding has gotten a little crazy, but those guys that bring you the Naruto games, they're bringing you a new MOBA. And I have to say, the shallowest of impressions, the art style is very generic. There is nothing,
no.
when I look at it, I see like, wow, this is like kind of not as good as StarCraft. You know, it's just like, okay, they're on some planet, the mechs look very nondescript. It just doesn't, I feel like when you are getting into a marketplace space as competitive as MOBAs, you really need something that's going to grab people's attention. You can't just be like, hey, here are some elves or here are some spaceships. It's just not enough.
Yeah, because I love the way Dota 2 looks, and here we go. I'm dead now. I'm dead. I never liked the way League of Legends looked.
A lot of people don't. That's fine.
I hated the look, so I never really gravitated towards it.
Yeah.
In a crowded marketplace, it is definitely all about initial knee-jerk, oh, this looks cool, I'm going to play it.
And as I sat down to play my demo, a gentleman who was very kind, very willing to help me out, said, I told him I had played a bunch of MOBAs, and he was like, okay, so you know what you're doing. Everything he explained to me, he would make an analogy to League of Legends.
Oh, no.
And that's not the worst thing in the world, but it created this overwhelming sense of, okay, this game kind of looks generic. It feels like the hero I was playing, I could name you probably 3 or 4 other MOBA characters from League and Dota that played like it. And it was like, man, I don't know if there's enough here.
Yeah.
So the twist in Supernova...
That's what I was going to ask you.
The twist, their selling point is that it is sort of a MOBA RTS hybrid. Now, I don't know if that is as true as it sounds. Basically, what it largely means is the creeps. For those who aren't familiar, creeps are the minions that kind of attack with you. And so, you want them around to absorb damage and to do damage to enemy structures and things like that. You can customize them. So you can spend resources to upgrade them in different ways.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
It's like Warcraft 3, kind of. When are we just going to get Warcraft 3? The original MOBA RTS hybrid. Come on. Those hero units? Is there any connection here with the Supernova?
So your heroes are called commanders. Yeah. But it does not feel like Warcraft 3 because, again, I only played one match at this event, so I do not have the most in-depth knowledge on it. But a few things kind of turned me off. Maybe you can control them later on, I don't know. But you just sort of upgrade them, and then they kind of do the same thing that any creeps do. So that lack of control is bothersome. Again, maybe that gets more in depth as you go on. But the thing that really turned me off is there's a setting right away where it's just like, hey, do you want to automate this? Do you want to just automate this creep building thing? And
so wait, but is it the same resources that you use to upgrade your hero?
No.
It's a different resource.
Correct.
So where do you obtain each resource to upgrade your creeps and your hero? How do you obtain...
That is a great question. I am not 100% sure on the answer on that. But when I was upgrading again, I only played one match.
Yeah.
I tried to get into the alpha today, didn't realize it was already closed. So we need to play more of it. But I got the sense that because I could automate it, it was something that just kind of didn't seem that consequential. I'm almost positive once you get to the higher echelons of play, it is something that becomes more meaningful. But I feel like so many things are are going against this game, right? It looks generic, and I don't think its twist is immediately grabbing enough to hold my interest.
Yeah.
You know, for someone like when I play a MOBA, I played Dota because I've invested so much time and resources into that game already.
That was a question I wanted to ask you. I mean, do you think when these new MOBAs come out, they're trying to attract new players to the genre? Because I feel like...
But that's the thing, is Supernova, by adding these other elements, it only makes things more complicated.
Yeah.
While I have issues with Heroes of the Storm, I appreciate that they're taking a completely different approach, and it is legitimately easier to get into because it strips out a lot of the very complex things in MOBAs. So Supernova is in this weird place where, yes, it has a twist, but I'm not sure if that twist is meaningful to put it in a position that matters. You know?
Maybe it's trying to be more hardcore than Dota.
It's not though. It's not though, because their vocabulary when they were talking about it was always like, no, we want to get more people into this. Okay. And it's like, how?
Yeah.
Like every aspect of it, except for this sort of RTS thing, comes from other games, and it comes from other games in such a blatant fashion that it's just not enough. It reminds me, history repeats itself, Michael Huber. And do you remember after the success of World of Warcraft, where you would have all of these MMOs that would come out where they'd be like, yes, it's a lot like World of Warcraft, but here's one new thing.
Yeah.
That one new thing got overshadowed by the sameness.
They're still doing that.
Yeah, they're still doing that.
It's a lot like World of Warcraft.
No one's learned their lesson, right? And those are my least favorite types of games to play and review, where, you know, you have to give credit where credit is due. It's like, yes, okay, they innovated in this one space, but 90% of it comes from a thing that has more soul because it felt more original and more creatively charged at the time it came out. I don't know. I feel like this is what I didn't want the conversation to come into. I didn't want it to be overly cynical, but you know, you look at the mobile space, you look at the MOBA space, you look at the MMO space, and it really is a bunch of Me Too competitors. And I don't for a single second believe that the guys making Supernova believe that. I think they truly think they are making something cool, and maybe they are. I just don't think they're putting their best foot forward. I don't think they've made a convincing argument yet, and maybe they will. It is something that I want to play more with. I want to mess around with the RTS element more than I have, but up front, in the first showing, not incredibly impressed.
Okay. Alpha, early?
Alpha, early,
Long way to go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to condemn the game, but I want the game to be aware of what it's going up against.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you think that's fair?
Absolutely fair.
Okay.
I think League of Legends took a lot from Dota.
Yeah.
And they just changed the art style a little bit. But why do you think that took off so hard?
I think that's an excellent question. And I think it is, and maybe I'm doing the same thing to Supernova, so keep that in mind. I think it's the thing that made League of Legends successful is two things. One, and the less flattering one, is it capitalized on Dota's momentum. So Dota was a mod for Warcraft 3 that Blizzard didn't try to get in there and capitalize on and make like a box product out of. League of Legends did that. It took the Dota idea from a mod and made it a real video game that you spend money on. Like, so that's part of it. The other thing is Riot was very, very, very aggressive at supporting its community and turning it into an esport, right? So it took the fundamentals of Dota, which were already very competitively sound, and it brought that to a bigger audience. Few companies, very, very few. I would argue that Blizzard doesn't even do nearly as good of a job as Riot has done in understanding the esports scene, figuring it out, and getting it to the people that care about it the most. Riot has done an incredible job of it. They are leading the charge. That is why League of Legends has been the #1 game on Twitch.
Did Supernova
forever.
mention anything about esports?
No.
Okay.
And that's the thing, you know. Does it have the resources to compete? Does it have the knowledge to compete? Does it have the understanding to compete? And the way Bandai Namco is presenting it, I don't know if they're doing a service to it either. You know, it very much smells like we want a piece of the pie, and that's not the smell you want to give off. Again, I don't think the developers are guilty of that. I just don't necessarily think it's being marketed in the best way. But
with that being said,
we will do. You know what? I
want to play this now. I'm intrigued. Now I want to play this game really badly.
I do too. I want to. The MOBA space is a really interesting space, and I want Supernova to prove me wrong. I could not be happier if it did happen to prove me wrong. Okay. Everything I said was a complete sham. But as somebody who
I'm pulling for Supernova out of spite.
Oh man, I didn't want to be the villain. But I think sometimes it's important to not just treat these games like they exist in a vacuum, and to be realistic. Like, what is this thing going up against? Totally. So, I'm sorry I became the villain, Huber.
No, not at all.
Okay. I appreciate you listening to my vitriol, but I think it comes from a reasonable place.
No, I don't think you were too negative at all.
So, all right.